Hello everyone and welcome to a new episode of The Shredding Skeptic. I'm very pleased this week to be able to bring you, finally, Project Cars in its glorious final release. I've been looking forward to doing this episode for some time, as Project Cars has been a game long in development with a lot of interesting faces behind it. One of the ironically familiar faces is that of the Stig, or former Stig, Ben Collins, who is known for having a rather unfavorable opinion of racing games in general. And again, based on the way the physics work and the way they have to be emulated in games, I can see where he's coming from. So these guys spent a lot of time getting everything right, and let me tell you, this game is unforgiving. And unforgiving as it may be, I will also argue that this is probably the closest thing we have in the world to truly getting behind the wheel of a racing machine without all the danger and expense. If this is a game you're interested in checking out, I would definitely recommend that you get yourself a racing wheel. But again, if you're serious about racing sims, I bet you already have one. Right now I'm using the Logitech G27 and it works for me just fine. Today's episode is going to be focusing specifically on 3 different variants of the Ariel Atom. They have a 300, a 500, and a full-on V8 version of this car. The V8 one will be featured towards the end of the video, and is the only one that has a lot of downforce, so this one is pretty skittish, and it's extremely light. So again, I do happen to make a few mistakes in this, and I was thinking about editing them out, but I thought it would probably be best to leave them in there just to show you how easy it is to spin out in this game. Because the Ariel Atom is so powerful and so light, in order to get it off the line cleanly, you're going to have to let it on the clutch very carefully. What I like to do is short shift it into second after I get it rolling, and then usually get that inertia up so that I can roll it into third without any wheel spin, because remember, if you spin those back wheels, it's just going to get your tires turned into smoke, and you're going to lose control and basically slam into the guy next to you or that wall. Not a great way to start a race. We're going to be taking a look at 3 different tracks today. We're starting off here on the Grand Prix circuit of Brands Hatch. We're then going to move over to Willow Springs and finally end off with a nice sunrise morning drive out at Laguna Seca. Another important driving technique that I found to be very useful in Project Cars is using your left foot to brake. When entering a turn, quite often I enter it with a little bit too much speed, and I'll find I start to understeer out towards the outer edge of the turn. So what I find helps is if you give the brakes just a quick tap with your left foot, and what that'll do is it'll shift the weight from the car from the back, which is, usually where the weight is sitting when you're accelerating forward, and it'll shift it a little bit more onto the front, and that'll give those front wheels just a little bit more grip, because now the weight of the car is more evenly distributed among all 4 wheels. Unfortunately, if you do this too early, you're going to oversteer and you're going to end up in the wall like I just did. Fortunately, Project Cars has thought of that, and it turns out by accident I just pressed one of the buttons on the gear shifter, actually the closest one to the left, the red one there, and it actually just dropped me back on the track. So, they thought of everything in this game to maintain that balance between realism and fun, and a lot of those options are configurable. I'm playing a lot of this on Pro right now, so most of the driver assists are off, so there's going to be no driving line, no braking assist, obviously no traction control as you just saw there. However, if you are a beginner, the assists are a great way of improving your driving skill so that later you can turn them off when you no longer find them necessary. So that was the Ariel Atom 300 out at Brands Hatch on our Grand Prix circuit. Next we're going to move over to Willow Springs and step it up to the 500. Don't let the paint job fool you, this thing is a lot more than just a pretty new face. The added horsepower will get you up to 200 faster than you realize, and you gotta make sure you don't go into these turns too quickly, as you'll find the lack of downforce towards the rear does make it a little bit harder to control under braking. As we come out to our first turn here, we want to try to dump speed in a straight line if we have to, but try to carry as much of it as possible through the turn and use as much of that load as we can. I've always found this turn to be rather difficult because what you have is a strong deceleration. You're going uphill making a turn as well. It's usually dropping down to 2. And then on the way out, you're going to go back downhill as well. So you're going to find the weight distribution on these turns all over the place. And as you can see, I didn't negotiate that exit too cleanly. Project Cars is an extremely extensive game, and I'm going to have to take my time working my way through these different cars and different tracks. And I'm going to try to feature as much new Project Cars content as I can for the time being, before jumping back to some other videos. Ripping through these tracks today with my favorite car, the Ariel and its different variants, has inspired me to create a little tune I'd like to name The Atom of My Eye. Thanks for tuning into this episode of The Shredding Skeptic, and please enjoy.